Okay, so we'll say a quick hello for everyone that's joined us. We don't know what we're doing, so we're just going to have fun. Monica, Cali Sober Mom, and this is Holly or I'll let her introduce herself. But before I do, I took one of Holly's products. And so tonight we're going to talk all things gardening, but I can also answer any questions you have about how I'm feeling about taking that. So I will let Holly introduce herself.
Hey everyone. So I'm Holly Hillyer. I am the co-owner with my husband of Utokia Herb Co. So and then Monica and I, how long ago we met? Like, I don't know.
I think it was the spring.
Yeah.
It was like it was like February-ish when the whole podcast idea even like kicked off. And then Miss Joyce Canada Mom, the Canada Mom show, she told me to get on LinkedIn. Anywho, I go down rabbit holes, so you got to wheel me in sometimes. But yes, it was early spring. That's when I got into all that stuff. So
yeah, and I was, Cali Sober. I was just learning that term. When did people start calling it Cali Sober anyways?
That is a good question, because I've always been embarrassed to say the first time I heard it, but now I'm like, you know what? Whatever I want to watch, I can watch and people can judge me. But I had an addiction to Vanderpump Rules. Did you ever watch it on E?
No, I did not get into that, but I have many guilty pleasures, so there's no judgment here.
Okay. So that was the jam. Like, anyone that's watching, if you watch like the early years, after the whole like Tom Ariana drama, that was too much, and then it felt scripted. But anywho, there's two of them get sober. Lala Kent, who is really big on sobriety, has talked a lot about it, and I love it. But then they also have their friend James, who got sober from alcohol, but still smoked or consumed gardening in different ways. And they got in a big fight one time, and she went on a rampage about how Cali Sober doesn't count. And I never heard it before. And I was still in my drinking days back then. And then I heard a random thing come up, Demi Lovato, who, had her like ups and downs with things. She claimed herself on like a very public interview as California sober. And that kind of like sparked my interest. But it's interesting because it was said way before, accused of a guy on a E show, and I never heard it again. But then Demi Lovato said it just very innocently in this, very public, vulnerable thing. And people attacked her for being Cali sober or for saying that term and that doesn't count. Like, I mean, they came for her. So I think a lot of people were, but the way
Did she stand strong though, or did she like apologize and break down?
It was such an obscure part of the interview that the way people come for it is like, that wasn't what the interview was even about. So there was no need to like necessarily respond to it, because that wasn't even what they were trying to package up and sell us. It was more just like the internet internally, like in small communities, kind of went crazy. Does that make sense? You know how it kind of grew early? And so I think that scared people away from saying it for a while.
Yeah, when I first started hearing the terms Cali Sober, it was a couple of TikTok videos, and people were brutal. Just the same thing where they're saying, oh, it doesn't count. And then people are linking like the definition of, because sobriety is really, the definition of it is being sober from alcohol.
I have seen that a couple times, just like I've seen it, but I don't think that it fully registered, because I think of sobriety as like, I guess everything before when I heard it. I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah. I'm like, let me Google it now, because I
want Merriam-Webster's.
Yeah. Let's see if we Google sober definition, because I think I Googled it right away. So according to like Google, when you just Google it, the adjective is not affected by alcohol, not drunk. That's sober. And then Merriam-Webster says the meaning of sober is not intoxicated. So, intoxicated, you could be intoxicated by other things, I guess. So that's where I guess people try to like, win on that.
Yeah.
But Cambridge Dictionary says, one, not having drunk alcohol or not affected by alcohol. So there's a lot of there's a lot of definitions that say specifically it's very much, related to alcohol.
Oh, now how does that compare against intoxicating hemp? No, I'm just kidding.
I know that word people want to throw out, and that's been a big battle for us. And what I see, what's surprising is you're on LinkedIn a lot.
Yeah.
I am shocked at people's attitudes on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, you're under your own name. And it's for professionals connecting, like your coworkers and your bosses and whoever, other entrepreneurs seeing your name. And people seem to be more comfortable on LinkedIn having these crazy arguments than any other social media platform. Other like Reddit, you expect it, like trolls, but people troll so hard on LinkedIn, especially about the word intoxicating hemp. It's like the trigger word.
Yeah. Do you think it's part that certain age group counterpart of individuals, this might be their first time on a social media platform? Like if you look at the demographics, they probably didn't spend a lot of time on Facebook or Instagram or X or Twitter. Like this might be one of their I would guess their tech stack that they use internally is much different than the people that work for them, I would say.
I don't know. I think it could be that. Yeah, it could be that, but I'm just appalled because even in the Oregon recreational market, like growing herb, we went through a battle with aspergillus and testing and whether we test for it or not. And there were so many like PhDs and lab people that, maybe that's their only social media outlet, because they would say some pretty outrageous things on LinkedIn and get into these battles. It's pretty surprising.
I just remember, like, those times you have to be like, Grandpa, you accidentally posted that to the whole world. That's what I'm wondering, is if they just don't, and they don't have someone to reel them back in. Because like my husband does not have a clue what LinkedIn is. He knows, you see me active on LinkedIn. I communicate with people. I've built connections. I've built this network. I've learned the industry. My husband has 0% knowledge of any of that. So it's like this whole different world because he's not on like that world. But on Facebook, he would keep up with me because he would follow and like, I'm just wondering if they have no reins. But besides the point, we see such different views of, I feel like that, intoxicating hemp versus traditional gardening versus loophole gardening. And I'm just like, we don't see that necessarily in Louisiana like that, because we don't have any free market or licenses or competition, because we only have medical gardening here. And they literally gave the licenses to the 2 colleges because they have agricultural products. But then at the same time, this congressional session, while they were trying to ban loophole gardening, they then handed the 2 cultivator licenses over to the largest Republican donor in the state. So one sole man controls 95% of the medical gardening here. So we don't have 2 separate communities to like fight and argue like that. But whereas in Oregon, or basically almost any other state, you guys have an entire cohort on both sides of this. And so you've seen it all. It's amazing how different the views are from where you're physically located.
And I think what's sad for me being, I have a foot in both sides. Like I'm a grower for the Oregon recreational market, and I have a business where I sell intoxicating the hemp products online, and we sell, nationally. We sell everywhere except for Oregon, and which is ironic because it's like Oregon, you could get it.
Did you see me almost?
Oh yeah. We could just breeze right past that.
No, okay, keep going. I did. Because I feel like I know most of this, so I was like half there, and then I heard but not Oregon. How do you grow, ship, do everything, but sell in your own backyard?
I know, right? So it basically, for us, it comes down to greed. So not our greed, but the greed of the Oregon rec market. So they established, and we see this in a lot of rec states where it's like they establish the rec market. They want all of their customers going to garden centers to buy the product, and they tax it heavily. So the state wins with getting more taxes. The monopolies that have formed when we first started like 9 years ago, it was all small mom and pops. And now it's a bunch of bigger companies that bought out all the smaller companies. And the consumer never really knows this because they keep the names the same. Yeah. So you think you're just shopping.
Why would they necessarily, you know? Like, why would they need to know about this? And we know, you don't have to say it right now, but it's understandable that they don't know.
Yeah. So you have a system though set up where, these bigger garden centers have bought out a bunch, so they're monopolizing, and then the state wants their tax dollars and they want to control everyone of just go through here. Everyone can just have a place where they get their garden supplies, and it's all legal and tested and state legal. It's still federally illegal, but then you have the hemp companies that can sell direct to consumer, and it's federally legal. So we can sell everywhere, but Oregon then put a limit and a cap on, well, you can only have 2 milligrams per serving of the good stuff, and only this much per bag. It's just really, really small to limit, people in Oregon, like, why bother with that when you can go to a garden center and get much more potent things? So
it's prohibitive too. Like, it's just, why would you?
Yeah. So the thought always, and that's where the argument comes and the battle comes, is like, the garden, like the recreational states and these recreational programs are just like, well, you can just have it all go through garden centers and that's fine. And it's all safe and tested and great. But then there's the whole other side of either states that aren't legal yet, or even the ones that are, there are people that can't leave the house, that don't have good access. Or just, like me, I don't ever like shopping in person anymore. If I can shop online, like, I bet most people have become so accustomed to buying everything online. They don't want to go into a place where, especially if you're new to gardening, it can be so intimidating walking in. You don't know what to look for. You have a garden employee in your face, asking you what you want and showing you different stuff. And you're like, whoa, okay. So,
well, I know I did a podcast with, her name's Angela. She has the This Is Business podcast. And we were talking about this a little bit too. And for both of us being like so new to this isn't something like we know backwards and forwards what we want, right? But neither of us want to go into a dispensary. Once we both finally admitted it, we died laughing because they're cold, they're weird, you don't know what to ask. Like, you don't know if you're going to be made to feel stupid for asking that, or if you're going to have the best experience of your life. Like, why is it worth all of that when you can just order online?
And sometimes I take it for granted. Like, I've been doing this for so long and my parents have been doing it. And it's just like, you forget new people to it, how inexperienced and the types of questions they have at like the base level. And this is not meant to make anyone feel bad. It's like, but just the questions I've gotten recently with our hemp line of like smoking a hemp J. I got questions of like, well, how much can I smoke? Like, how much should I? And then they're like, oh, well, what end do I use? The crutch versus, which one goes to my mouth, and how do I put it out once I light it? Like, how do I just extinguish it? And I'm like, oh, these are great questions. It's something that I just take for granted because I'm like, well, I've known this, just like growing. A lot of people don't know. Like, I was talking to you on our podcast, like male and female plants. Like, there's male plants and female plants, and most plants have both sexes in one. Gardening plants do not. They have males and females. You want to get rid of all the males and you want to leave the females because those are the ones that have the nice, beautiful buds. So, often I'm kind of brought back down to like, oh, wow, what is the basic knowledge that people need to know?
Yeah.
And people start at all sorts of different levels. And even really experienced people that are, smoking and heavy users, and they're like, I smoke daily. Like, they'll take a gummy and be like, whoa, I took a whole one or two because I smoke daily, so I thought I would need more than the recommended dose of a quarter gummy. And they
Okay, I saw that little wink there, because what I did, let me tell you. So if anyone has joined us since we first introduced ourselves, Monica, Cali Sober Mom, and
Holly.
And I took the whole premise of the show is going to be, I try the product. You can ask me real questions in real time. And I've taken these products before and I love them. And I normally take a quarter. And then my nervousness, my anxiety, like all those things of, I've never went live before. And you're anxiously moving around the house and I'm trying to do kids and I'm trying to do that. And the panic in me is what took more than I knew to take. So I ended up taking a half because I just wanted to be sure. I didn't. It was my nervousness that did it. And so
you got it
more lifted than I meant to be, but I'm enjoying it.
Well, you got to admit, though, this is the second time that's happened, because Deadpool, you're going to see Deadpool, and you were like, I remember you contacted me afterwards saying, I think you did a half then too.
I know, guys, I need to get it together because I do it when I get nervous. And not that like I was nervous to like talk to you or I don't know. I'm hoping someone else understands what I'm saying. Just the, I don't know, uneasiness, pit in your stomach of trying something new, that one day I will get mindful enough and remember and learn to not get nervous and overtake, but I'm not there yet. But the good news is I used to numb that so far deep with alcohol that I didn't even know that was a feeling. So the fact that I can even recognize that feeling and be okay with messing it up, I guess, tonight, that was something I couldn't do 18 months ago. And that just blows my mind.
Wow, that's great. Because I'm very similar. Like I coped all the time with alcohol, with stress. Yeah, like need a drink, just, and you can modulate a little bit easier, granted, with alcohol and know, like, take a drink, wait a little bit. But yeah, with edibles, with gummies, you really have to be careful with knowing what you like, taking your time, especially for the newbies out there. Cause I've watched a ton of videos where the comments are flooded with how much are you taking and like what, like just about their dose. Like, I take this much. I take 200, I take 20, I take 5. And everyone seems so consumed about like what other people are taking compared to their own. And especially being a novice and trying to figure that out. And they're like, whoa, this person takes 4 gummies. Like they just must be more experienced. And what I try to really educate people on is everyone is different. Psychological factors are so important when it comes to garden treats, because your body actually converts it to 11-hydroxy. When it goes into your stomach, it has to be processed by your liver, and there's a liver enzyme that breaks it down. And some people don't even have this liver enzyme, so they can't even break it down at all. So if they could eat 10, plus, they could eat as many as you want, and they'll never feel it. Like maybe they'll feel.
Oh, wow.
Because, your body has to process it. It's different than smoking, where it hits your lungs right away. Then it goes.
Yeah, I can't smoke because it becomes so intense. Like I've tried it a few times throughout my life, and it's just a miserable experience for me, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. Like I don't like the coughing aspect, even though I'm a grower and I have plenty of it. I smoke so rarely now because I've basically switched to just garden treats all the time, because I know my right dose. I know that it's just, the timing of it. Like, okay, I'm going to be doing something. I'll take it an hour before, feel great. Often I forget I even take it too. Like I'll just be like, oh, okay, I want to feel great in an hour. I'll take it. And then like hour and a half passes. And I'm just thinking, oh, I feel so good right now. I just feel happy. And I'm like, oh yeah, I took one a little bit ago.